Keep Right with Ralph K. Ginorio. It can happen here. Springfield, Ohio is only the latest and most famous example of an American community destroyed by mass migration. It is by no means unique. Municipalities as diverse in time, space, and character as 1990s Lewiston and Portland, Maine, and today's Syacauga City, Alabama, and Twin Falls, Idaho, have experienced the trauma of thousands of culturally unassimilated immigrants suddenly appearing in their neighborhoods. After 4 years of open border and 59 years of pro-third world immigration policies, communities across the United States are being intentionally transformed. States, cities, and towns deemed by leftists to be too white or too conservative have been targeted for radical reconstruction. The current patterns, should I say, bear absolutely no resemblance to traditional U.S. immigration patterns. For example, my ancestors came from Ireland, England, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. They came as individuals. They each had to adapt themselves to learn English, develop American manners and hygiene, and earn a living. To thrive in their newly adopted land, my ancestors sloughed off their old country identities to become thoroughgoingly American. More importantly, they raised their children to be patriotic defenders of the USA who loved their country. They exemplified the American dream. I suspect that this is true of anyone's family who arrived in the United States from abroad before the mid 1960s. They arrived legally, individually, and eager to adapt. They were self-supporting, insistently so, because in the United States, a person was defined by their work, not by their birth. After decades of a flood of immigrants, largely from Europe and East Asia, the United States decided in 1924 to restrict new immigration to lower numbers. This was done to give immigrants and their descendants time to more fully assimilate into the United States culture. However, in 1965, a Democratic congressional supermajority partnered with President Lyndon Baines Johnson to open the United States to a new inundation from abroad. You cannot trust Democrat supermajorities. This time, preference was given to people from third world countries. So-called economic refugees eclipsed those who came here to share in our constitutional freedom. This new wave of legal immigrants originated in regions with little contact with Western civilization, from peasant societies rather than from modern industrial civilization. More importantly, because of the new Great Society welfare state that LBJ and this supermajority set up, these newly arrived immigrants were able to immediately go on the dole. They did not have to get a job in the wider American world. Because of this, many remain ghettoized by their own choice. They do not need to adapt. A new pattern of organized group settlement developed after the United States intervened in Somalia. Many thousands of newly arrived Somalis were placed into communities that had never asked for them, nor expected them, nor even discussed anything like taking them in. Catholic charities settled thousands in enclaves neighborhoods in Lewiston and Portland, Maine. These immigrants only rarely entered into the wider mainstream, yet they demanded that their host communities adapt to their cultural particularities. Every public service was overstressed, Schools in particular were hard hit. Street culture became unrecognizable, and crime of all kinds skyrocketed. Despite the ubiquitous propaganda that diversity is our strength, living standards fell and community norms deteriorated. Long term residents found their communities unrecognizable and themselves a now threatened minority within their own neighborhoods. Add to this the tens of millions of illegal aliens that have been recruited to come here by the Biden Harris administration. When will they be placed by the thousands into regions like North Idaho? When will this social engineering be used to make us less white and less conservative? This is all being done for political gain. Leftists want shattered communities full of desperately worried Americans, so desperate that they will cede to the federal government total power. They also want immigrant-fueled permanent electoral majorities that will turn the United States into a one-party dictatorship like Venezuela. If the floodgates of unrestricted illegal and legal immigration were to be unleashed upon us, who would stop it here in our area? A Coeur d'Alene City Council so desperate to curry favor with the woke donor class that they have already enacted laws against free expression. The Board of Kootenai County Commissioners, who are already so overwhelmed by other matters that it's unlikely that they could marshal the focus to pay attention to such preventative measures, or our moderate governor, who has publicly delighted in frustrating conservatives. We, voting citizens, had better make it our top priority, or at least a top priority, in local, county, state, and federal elections to find ways of legislating to prevent Catholic charities and these other non-governmental organizations from flooding our homes with thousands of unacculturated immigrants. If we don't, then sooner or later, what has happened elsewhere will certainly happen here.